Okay, ladies and gentlemen, today we're gonna start the chapter 6 here on page 87, which is related to the environment and human health. Which, the first section of the chapter, we are talking about pollution. And as you will see, there are several levels of pollution. But before talking about pollution, it is important to notice that pollution is directly related to the human population. Of course, the more people there are in the road, the more we pollute. So I'm here to wonder, what would be the human population today in the road? But to imagine how big is the road population today, it is also necessary to imagine how was 2021 years ago. About 2021 years ago, on the year 1, the human population was around 170 million. And for a very long time, a time of about 1,800 years, it finally reached 1 billion. So it took 1,800 years, 18 centuries, to go from 170 million to 1 billion. By the year 2000, in other words, 200 years, it reached 6 billion. So can you see it, guys? It took all this time to go from 170 to 1 billion. Then it took only 200 years to increase by 5 billion people to this, guys, about 20 years to have a scale of time, 200 years, and then 20 years to reach today at 7.8 billion. Guys, this is very important to understand pollution, because all these people use plastic straws. All these people, they eat, and in order to eat, you need to have a plantation. You need to create fields for the cattle. Everybody pollutes. Even if you try to be the most ecological, sustainable possible, you are still going to pollute. And this is intrinsic to the amount of people that is in the road. So, why is that? Why is there so much more people? Why did it take only 20 years to grow 1.8 billion from the year 2000 to 2021, while it took 1,800 years to grow this much? This has to do with technology. Technology has a very big impact on the amount of time and the production of food there is in the road. One of the reasons why the population was kept so little for a very long time is that the road had a very strong mortality rate, meaning that in the past, a couple would have more than 10 children, but the hygiene, the health issues, they were so bad that most of the children would die. If you remember chapters in the past, talking about hygiene and health, talking about infancy, pregnancy, teenage pregnancy, today that we say that teenage pregnancy is a concern. In the past, it used to be a norm. Also, whenever you guys are playing, you were playing sports in the past few classes. I'm pretty sure that many of you had already fell, and when you fall on the floor, there's a little bit of blood. Today, you have a little bit of blood in your knee because you fell, you're playing sports. It's not a problem. You go to the toilet, you wash yourself with clean soap, you disinfect it, you are clean, you are nice, nothing's gonna happen. But today we have medicine, and this medicine allows us to create antibiotics. So if you have a problem, you have an infection, you take on, and then you're fine. Before antibiotics were created, and I'm not saying that in the past there was no medicine, there were no doctors. Yes, there were, but they were a lot less effective than they are today. If you are playing and you have a blood on your knee, and if it does get infected, either you got it or it's over. That is why for a very long time the population was kept so low. A couple that would have 10 children, actually only 2 would survive to adulthood. So that's when you look at the life expectancy, how long people will live throughout history. Only by the 1900s, about 100 years ago, it became over 40. I am not saying that the adults who die at 40, I'm saying that the number was kept low because most of the children will not survive to very basic hygienic needs. So, this is important to understand pollution, because even if we did not have cars, even if we did not have airplanes, even if all the technology we have today, as of using mobile phones, as using things that cannot be recycled, we still need to eat. And that's a main issue when you think of pollution. Because in order to have a plantation, so we can have vegetables, or in order to have steak, we need to cut down forests. So guys, I'm gonna show you a video to illustrate a little bit of how much the road population has grown. Great. Can you stop again? So guys, you're saying basically that before the beginning of written history, when man was still living in the caves, the population around the world, it were less than 1 million. But around by the year 1, it was estimated 170 million. Guys, I hope you can see this well, but every little dot here corresponds to 1 million people. That's on the year 1, 2021 years ago. And I want you to notice it, that around the year million, you can see most of the dots. They are around, or what used to be back then, the Roman Empire, the Middle East, India, and China, and ancient China. That's where most of the advanced civilizations at the time used to live. So they had some of the better nutrition, some of the better abilities to cope. If you look at Africa, except for Egypt, we have very few people. They are blocked by this desert, so they cannot go up. Russia has this gigantic Siberia, and of course the Americas, you can see some Asian, Mexico, but they are cut outside from the rest of the world. So pay attention on how much is going to be popping, but especially around the way that connects Europe to Southeast Asia and China, most of the population tends to grow on this area. But how slow is going to grow? So in 300 years, it has grown about 10 million people only. It's been 500 years in our timeline and it still has only grown. It has actually decreased it, so it's less than 10 million. It's also to keep in mind that due to poor hygiene and poor medical care, whenever there were huge epidemics, outbreaks, the population of the world would actually decrease it. We're gonna see that soon here in the timeline. We are now in the year 1000. You can see a massive explosion in China and India. At this time, we're talking about the 14th century. There's something called the bubonic plague, which I will address in another class, that has actually reduced the population of the world by 1/3. The plague, today we have a cure to it, but due to poor hygiene, it was enough to kill half the population, especially across this big, like the major civilizations were located. So 1 out of 3 died because of the plague, which was connected to poor cleaning conditions. Now the population of the world is increasing rapidly. We are around the Industrial Revolution, where modern technology, where man can start to produce merchandise in a factory scale, and medicine is bringing up faster development. So you can see it's popping. So most of the land that was pretty much empty now has this gigantic coverage. And that is a problem. You can see most of the forest areas in which still has big amount of forest. Remember that this is a desert, and this is a desert. To feed these people, it needs to be cut down. Is it okay for the moment? So guys, besides this betterment of the quality of life, as I said, even if we didn't have cars, if we didn't have planes, if we didn't have all the technology we had, we still had the problem of feeding all these people. But moreover, we do have the technology. So, it is not that people in the past were very nice, they care about the environment and we don't, but it's also that we do have a lot of people and we all use a lot of things. So, it's not only you that turns on the air conditioner at night, it is also billions of other people doing the same, sending gases to the atmosphere. So we're gonna look on page 87 that says that the environment we live, it affects our health directly. Of course, when you breathe, you're breathing the air from the environment. If the air is polluted, it is bad for your own respiratory system. A good and clean environment enables us to enjoy good health. On the contrary, pollution to our environment causes our health to suffer. Therefore, we should know how pollution can affect our health and how to prevent it. So the book will mention some sorts of pollution, such as air pollution, water pollution, soil pollution, and noise pollution. Air pollution, I think, is self-evident. The ones that you imagine, the big factories, the industries that's producing, we have that big smoke over there coming. That is air pollution. Air pollution can also be caused by natural causes sometimes. Volcano eruptions, for example, the gas that comes from the eruption of the volcano that also pollutes the environment. But normally we are thinking of man-made air pollution. Carbon dioxide from the cars, from the buses, from the airplanes. This is all air pollution. Air pollution happens when our air contains solid particles and gases in great amounts that may cause harm to humans. Car emissions, chemicals from factories, and dust and fume from open burning contribute to air pollution. Again, if you have a forest and the forest is on fire, the dust, the smoke coming from the fire of the forest also contributes to air pollution. Some air pollutants are poisonous. Inhaling them can cause our health to deteriorate. It is on page 88. It means to make it worse. If something deteriorates, it gets rotten, it gets worse. People with heart or lung diseases, the elderly and the children are at higher risk. Of course, air pollution, it affects directly the lungs and the heart, the respiratory and the circulatory system. Water pollution. Water pollution. You can think of the sewage system. When you use the toilet, you flush, you think it's going to disappear, it's not going to disappear. Whatever you throw in the toilet is going to go to a river or to a sewage system. We can treat as we do the water, but not all of them. Moreover, that's very common, plastic bags, straws. You walk around them, you throw them, they end up in the ocean. Today, as a serious problem, we have in the Pacific Ocean an amount of trash that people some say that looks like the size of Texas, made of dust. That's not exactly how it happens. In another class, I'll show how big is it, but it's not a stereotype, but to say that some people actually think there's a country made of garbage in the ocean. So pretty much the streams, whatever it is, it's over there. Water pollution is another vital problem since we need to drink water. And the amount of water we can recycle to make it drinkable, it cannot be done as fast as we pollute it. Water pollution is the contamination of water that has harmful effect on living things. Dumping of domestic sewage and industrial wastewater into water bodies without filtering is the main cause of water pollution. If our water sources are contaminated, we will face serious health problems including cholera, dysentery, renal calculi, kidney stones, and minamata. Other than that, water pollution may cause skin infection if we use polluted water for bathing and washing. Marine life will be affected. Hazardous chemicals will accumulate in them which will later enter our body through food chains. One more time, there is so much plastic in the ocean that today is kind of dangerous to eat the fishes. We have to check. We find very often human waste inside the body of animals. Good for a moment. Another sort of pollution is soil pollution. Soil, guys, land. Many people tend to believe that we put something in the garbage can and then the garbage man takes away, it's going to miraculously disappear, or the garbage is going to disappear. That's what happens, it goes somewhere and the soil can get contaminated. That is a problem because we depend on a healthy soil that we can grow healthy plants, that we can grow healthy animals, and which we depend to eat these vegetables, to eat these animals. Guys, our soil might get contaminated with industrial waste as harmful chemicals, agricultural pesticides. If you guys don't know what are agricultural, they are poison in which farmers put on the crops, on the vegetables, to try to kill the bacteria that can be harmful to them. But then, in place, we eat this poison. Fertilizers is the dung that they use to plant the vegetables, and insecticides to kill disease. But again, they bring on other diseases. Besides that, domestic waste also contributes to soil pollution if not managed properly. People living near or unpolluted soil have higher incidence of miscarriage. Miscarriage, guys, natural abortion, when the woman is pregnant, she has a baby, the baby dies. Skin diseases, migraine, headache, and nausea, feeling sick in general. The long-term effects will be cancer, leukemia is a rare blood disease, kidney and liver damage, and others. Children too may suffer from developmental chain problems. These developmental problems could be hormones, not regulated, breathing problems. There is many of them. The plants that grow on polluted soil will be harmed. Soil pollutants can also kill the plants that feed us. That is a double-edged sword. Many of these things, pesticides that we try to kill the bacteria that kill the plants, they may be able to kill the plants themselves. And there are many areas that are contaminated. As I said, when you put your garbage in the trash can, you think it's going to miraculously disappear, but not all is recycled. There are big dumps around the road. And finally, for this chapter, noise pollution. Noise pollution, when you live in a big city and you see the cars honking all the time, that's very stressful. That is also harmful for your health. Noise pollution happens when people or animals are exposed to levels of sound that are annoying, stressful, or damaging to the ears. Noise pollution mostly comes from machines, especially vehicles, Construction equipments, farm machines, and factory machineries can be dangerously loud. Even music played at very high volume can be very damaging to the ears. Listening to very loud music for a long time can cause loss of hearing. So if you're exposed to very loud music, often, eventually, your hearing abilities will be damaged. You're going to hear less. People who experience stress due to noise pollution for a long term may develop nervous system problems. Here it says, because I gotta remember from the other class, the independent studies, exposure to sounds above 85 decibels over 1 hour can cause loss of hearing. So if you guys remember when you were shouting, ah, they were all around 90, 100, 110 decibels. Imagine hearing that for 1 hour in a row. That may lead to the loss of hearing. So that's going to be it for today. I am going to ask you to do the exercise on page 90, in which you are going to survey and write about a pollution problem in your community and how it affects your health. So guys, survey means research. So what I'm going to ask you is to research, to ask a friend of yours to talk about the pollution of a problem. So you say which one is the problem? It's noise, if it's noise, if it's air. Air pollution is a common problem in Thailand. The causes of the problem, why does that problem exist? For noise pollution or air pollution, are there too many cars? Effects on the environment, effects on health, and how can you prevent it? So that's going to be it for today. See you next time.